and you can follow along, but basically you get a number of points. You're back in school for your cervix, all right? Hey everyone, my name's Sarah Lavonne, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. I think at face value, when you see this video, if you are here, first of all, thank you, because it's not the most sexy or like enticing of titles, but the bishop score and you understanding what it is and how it's used potentially has massive impact on your labor and birth, specifically in the case of an induction of labor. And so if your doctor, in fact, expect your doctor to bring up an induction of labor at some point for discussion. It would be somewhat uncommon at this point that your doctor doesn't have a conversation about it with you. And in anticipation of that conversation, I need you to understand what a bishop score is, because this specific number helps us better predict your chance of a vaginal birth in an induction. And that really is what people are concerned about. It's a potential risk that when you are induced, you want to know what are the chances that by choosing an induction, it will lead to a vaginal birth versus waiting for labor to happen on its own and then that chance of a vaginal birth. And in general, I would say like the general consensus is that an induction has a higher chance of a C-section. Now, statistically speaking, and by the evidence, that's not necessarily true, but it is to me, it is a risk that like your body could just be like, nah, I'm not into it. And so we want you to make an informed choice going forward. And a bishop score is a piece of information that can help inform those decisions, and especially your decision for an induction, or potentially inform your care team on how to induce you with what type of things. Okay, if you don't know what I'm talking about, take the bundle birth class. I have a whole long one on induction where I break down literally every minute detail and all the questions to ask, et cetera, et cetera. I'll also link some other YouTube videos down below you can check out. This originally was developed in 1964 by Dr. Edward Bishop, hence the name. Now, it was originally used to predict the success of an induction of labor, especially if we're inducing you. We want to know that we're not like setting you up for a C-section or for poor outcomes. But mind you, now that number is sort of more broadly used to help give us an idea and give us like a picture going into an induction, and like I said, throughout the induction. The reality is that the higher the score, the more likely your body is close to going into spontaneous labor, okay? So this is just sort of like helpful along the way, because in order to get a bishop score, your doctor has to check your cervix. I will link my vaginal exam video on this. I talk about it in the bundle birth class, but basically they have to place their two fingers inside and feel your cervix, which really gives us information about what's happening with your labor. Of course, we're looking at dilation, but we're looking at a lot of other things that I'm going to tell you in just a second. And so if they're checking you, the key here is ask for your bishop score. All right, especially after watching this video, I'm going to give you the whole cheat sheet. It's also in the description down below. And so you can ask for your bishop score while also sort of getting it in your head, like, am I close to going into labor? Even if you're not induced, am I close? Is my cervix like ready and primed and moving that direction? And what was your bishop score at 37 weeks versus when they check you at 38 weeks or 39 weeks and beyond, okay? So it does sort of give some context. I want this information. I want to know the full vaginal exam. I want to know what your bishop score is if you're being checked, because again, it sort of just gives a bigger picture when labor is so flex and flow, labor is so unknown, and it just sort of happens whenever it happens, all right? It also is going to tell us by the higher the score, the higher the chance that an induction will be sort of smooth and successful moving towards a vaginal birth, all right? A successful induction to me is one that results in a vaginal birth versus a C-section. All right. I mentioned this before, but just to clarify that a bishop score is used before an induction to sort of predict your success or your chances of a vaginal birth, or it's used during an induction to give us an idea of which induction agent to use, which one is going to be the most effective. As a reminder for an induction, we can ripen your cervix, give you Pitocin, break your water, or give you a Foley balloon. Not in that order, okay? Again, this you'll learn in other videos. If you want more on that or you have specific questions, please drop them down below. I see all of your comments, and so it informs where we go in the future, which is another reason why you should also just click that little subscribe button along the way so you never miss a future video. In general, when we're talking about a bishop score, there's really no universally accepted rule for what number on the Bishop score table is considered favorable or unfavorable related to your cervix. Okay, that's a lot of times the terminology we will use. She has a favorable cervix. It's like, oh, we love it. Or an unfavorable cervix. We also love those cervixes, but when we're talking about chances for an induction and whether they're like ripe and ready, they're not really favorable for labor in that case, okay? And so as far as which number equals different things in general across the board, again, no universal number, but any number less than 6 is considered unfavorable. Now, in other environments, it might even be up to 8. It might be 6 and below. But in general, especially when we're looking at like what's happening in your cervix, less than 6, you can assume it's not really ready for an induction. Now, does that mean you can't do an induction, that you can't have a successful induction? No, but it might take some extra time, some extra coaxing to get you really into labor, all right? And then, of course, the number greater than or equal to 8 is really a favorable cervix, where we're like, if you have a cervix that's there, you're like likely going to go into labor soon. If you are induced, I would expect, and I literally think this when I hear about people's cervixes that are being induced, I'm like, oh, easy peas, higher chance of it being a success. Let me share with you the Bishop score table, and I will put it on the screen here and you can follow along, but basically you get a number of points. You're back in school for your cervix, all right? And so we're gonna break it down by 0, 1, or 2 or 3 points. And each component of, again, the vaginal exam is gonna give you a point. We're gonna add them all up at the end, and then that is your Bishop score, right? The first thing we're looking for is your cervical dilation. You can go to my vaginal exam videos, what is labor, cervical dilation up close, short, or real is there. And so we're giving you 0 points for a closed cervix. You're not open at all. 1 to 2 centimeters is 1 point. 3 to 4 centimeters is 2 points, and anything greater than or equal to 5 centimeters, you get 3 points, okay? You're already halfway to 6, okay? That's looking real good, all right? Now, on the next level, we also want to know your effacement. If you don't know what that means, that's the thinning of the cervix. I have lots of information on that. Again, the bundle birth class breaks it down. 0 points is if your cervix is real thick, 0 to 30% effaced. 40 to 50, 60 to 70, and then greater than or equal to 80% effaced. That's like this thick, okay? It's not thick at all. It's super soft, super stretchy. It's ripe and ready. You're gonna get 3 points, okay? So say you're 580 and then station being low, your baby's practically falling out at that point. If your baby's +2 on the station route and you're 5 centimeters and it's like your 3rd, 4th baby, like you're gonna have a baby any second. But flex and flow on that, all right? So the third thing we need to know is the station of the baby, how high or how low the baby is in the pelvis. If they're super high, -3, that's gonna give you 0 points. -2, -1, or 0 station, that's typically where we're waiting to push, okay? And then +1 or +2 is like past the bones in the pelvis. I would never expect you to get like a really high score on the station piece. You're probably looking at like a 0 to a 1 point on this for an induction. Babies start out high and then it takes you to be like in labor for them to really come down. Ask for the full exam. And then the last piece is that every time we check your cervix, your provider should actually be looking at and like feeling for, but no one ever talks about, is cervical consistency and position. What that means is like, what's the texture of your cervix? When I touch it, is it pretty firm and kind of like not stretchy or smushy at all? Is it sort of smushy, or is it super smushy and soft, okay? And so like you feel, even my thumb, that would still be like a medium cervix. Firm would be like where I'm pushing it and I'm trying to stretch and it's just solid in there, okay? Whereas soft is like, maybe like find somewhere fat on yourself. Like maybe your cheeks. Let's go with your cheeks. That it's smushy, right? That like it means that like when those contractions come, it's more likely responsive. Now you're getting 0, 1, or 2 points here. There's no such thing as 3 point. And then the position is when we reach inside, can we find the hole of your cervix inside super easily, or is it kind of like facing backwards, anterior? or posterior, or is it kind of moving more anterior, which it does move more anterior a lot of times because the baby's pushing that down, okay? Now, no matter what your cervical exam is or your Bishop score is, we're holding very loosely to that. The Bishop score is one piece of information. Your Bishop score could be like 0, and a day later, you're in full-blown rip-roaring labor, your water breaks, you have a baby by the end of the day, okay? So again, this is where the flex and flow of labor comes in and is so important. And I don't want, anytime I give you some sort of like concrete number or stat, that like you are not a statistic, you are not the Bishop score, it's one piece of information. So when we talk about the interpretation or what each number means, in general, the consensus is that if you are 0 to 4 centimeters, your cervix is considered unfavorable for induction, all right? That means you're pretty far from spontaneous labor, that potentially your induction will take longer. It's not the most favorable of a cervix. And so of course that in that case, if your Bishop score is low, you want to talk to your provider and say, how will you induce me? And come back for part 2 or the video after this, because I do actually tell you exactly what questions to ask prior to your induction or to agreeing to an induction, okay? Because I have like a whole video coming on that. So make sure you subscribe for that. But then you want to talk about like, how much time will you give me? And what does this look like? And how can you set me up for induction success? All right. If it's 5 to 6, you're borderline. You might need cervical ripening agents. It's getting there. It's not quite there, but it's not like unfavorable necessarily. And then anything 7 and above would be considered favorable. I know I said 8, but it's sort of like, this is where like, when you pool the data together, that 7, 8, similar numbers, higher chance an induction will work, higher chance of things kind of moving smoothly and quickly through the process. I hope you found that helpful. I know that like there's a lot to know, and especially like if you've landed on this video, you're probably like, whoa, I've never even heard of a Bishop score. And if you have, then amazing, you're doing the work. But again, there's so much to know, and there's also so much that you can control. And my hope for you is that you feel like, wow, I'm so educated, I have enough of a baseline, but also remember that your provider's there to help you navigate these conversations. If you don't remember the exact number of like, you can say, what's my Bishop score? And they might be like, really? Like, interesting question, because that's not the question they're getting asked all the time. But then they're going to say your Bishop score is a 6. And you can say, well, what does that mean for my induction? What does that mean for me going into labor? And then you can start to get more information. Again, so often, and I find that like, this is what gets me excited for you, is that I can help you to ask the right questions to get the information you would otherwise not even know to ask. And that likely might not even come up ever in the process, but hopefully will inform you to help set you up for a better birth experience. That is my ultimate goal for you. So head on over to bundlebirth.com, because I give you literally my heart and soul in class form, going over literally everything from start to finish through the bundle birth class. I have coping with labor, newborn safety and CPR VBAC class. There's a bunch of freebies. There's an entire visualizations class. That's like my heart, to help set up your mind so that if you are induced, not only can we know your Bishop score, but you can actually utilize your nervous system, meaning your brain and how calm you are in your body, to help set you up that things can actually go smoother. Also more that you can control. I want to give you all of that through all the things. Make sure you subscribe, because there's tons more coming over here. Let me know what you want in future videos. What was your Bishop score? What is your Bishop score? Did you know about this? Drop that down below. Give it a like, share it with a friend. And then until next time, don't forget to flex and flow, and I will see you very soon. Bye. Slash 1964 boy, fat meaning like some fat, find some fat. No. Soft. Should I wait? Some of the consensus are that if you're clearly not Gen Z.